Good afternoon. My name is Will Bishop. I'm here to talk to you about driving towards data mesh at Rivian. I want to go on a bit of a road trip with you today. This is basically the story of our journey in data analytics in the last 2 years at Rivian. We started basically from scratch about 2.5 years ago, and we've kind of evolved and lurched towards data mesh in that time. The first question you might ask is, are we there yet? No, not yet at all, but we've made a ton of progress in that time, and we are evolving in the right direction. And this presentation is going to border a bit on kind of family slideshow pictures with y'all, but I think there's a compelling story to be told, and I've called out some themes that I think we've found particularly valuable in our efforts here. So data mesh, you might be familiar with this diagram from the excellent article by Zhamak Dehghani. I showed this to a colleague, and he kind of groaned because he's seen this image so many times. But this is this amazing modern recommendation around this age-old problem of centralization versus decentralization in development in the data space. These are amazing concepts, but there's also this question of how do we get there? How do we build this? So to look at this in a slightly different way, I love this analogy of data as a marketplace. I've seen this with some other folks and other talks. At Rivian, I feel like we've been growing from this small set of data marketplaces, kind of serving consumers locally and growing out into this larger global data economy in this connected mesh. We want to build a healthy free market. We want to have effective production and trade, but we also want to have standards and regulation and great visibility as we build that out. I think I'm not an economist, but I feel like there's really rich metaphors in this space. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Before I dig in, some intro info about me. I'm from North Carolina. I came out to California for school. I studied archaeology and mechanical engineering, which obviously prepared me really well for data science. You can tell me later which one you think is closer to the world of data science. I have worked at Tesla for a long time, starting as a mechanical engineer, but worked as a data scientist on infrastructure and analytics there for the last 6 years. I spent some time at an indoor agriculture startup. We grew leafy greens in a warehouse in South San Francisco, and then back to the EV space at Rivian to build more electric cars. So the theme in my professional career has been manufacturing and data, building things in the physical world, using data to inform that. If you want to talk to me about not career stuff, not data stuff, ask me about Ted Lasso. This is me at Comic-Con here for the first time in San Diego. I'm happy to show you pictures of my cats and see pictures of your cats or dogs or furry children. And I have way too many D&D podcasts I can recommend to you if you're interested. About Rivian, if you don't know us, we're a new American car company. That used to be a really novel, bold thing. Now it seems like there's a lot of those starting out, but we're giving it a shot. We make all electric vehicles. We currently make a truck, an SUV, and a delivery van, mainly for Amazon. At my time at Rivian, we have grown a lot. The company has grown a lot. When I started at the beginning of 2021, there were about 2,000 employees, and we had shipped no products at the beginning of that year. Now we are over 10,000 employees, and we've shipped those three distinct vehicles that I showed you before, and we've made 24,000 vehicles last year, aiming at 50,000 this year. To give you a sense of that growth, you can see these quarterly production numbers from across all our vehicles. To put that in some context, this is the first 7 months of the Tesla Model S launch. I worked on that launch. I worked on our data infrastructure there. We are doing a great job. That's 3 distinct products from Rivian versus 1. It takes a ton of teams and systems and efforts to build a new car, but I can say from personal experience, our data infrastructure is vastly better from that time in 2012. A lot of amazing tools and infrastructure. So I'm going to rewind back to the start of this journey in 2021. That first year was kind of laying the foundations. I was hired as the second person on our factory data team, helped hire and grow this team. We got to 12 people by the end of that year. It's mostly data scientists, a couple of ML engineers, a fantastic DevOps engineer, 0 data engineers on this team. This is kind of sparse here, but we were laying the foundations there. We didn't have a warehouse to start out with. The factory was a giant empty building, and our virtual factory that sat above that was also pretty empty. So this was, get the warehouse. I think we bought Snowflake on a credit card in Q2. There's a big gap between pushing our first dbt model. We had to get data into that warehouse, get that kind of data supply chain going. But we were pushing models by the middle of the year. We're using dbt Cloud from the start. We were a small, fast-paced team, so that just kind of solved a solution for us. By the end of the year, we had data we were showing to people. We started having daily data office hours. That's something we've continued on to this day. Every day, folks can come stop by, ask data questions. The kind of test for us that year was this first December, this cold winter in production. At the end of every year, there is this giant push to get cars out the door, to hit our production numbers, really kind of all hands on deck, exciting and tough time. It was a hard time that first winter. People would come to us with data questions, and sometimes we had no answers. Sometimes answers would take days to respond back with. So rough, but we were, again, laying those foundations, getting the team in place. And at the end, we did ship 1,000 cars. That was 3 distinct products. It was still an amazing start as a company. To give you some sense of stats and size, this was some numbers from our dbt project, a bunch of different sources even to start out with, the beginnings of some MART models, and this internal development team that was generating all of this. This gives you a sense of our kind of productivity over time. This is our merge requests, pull requests in our dbt repo. You can see once we actually got data in our warehouse, once we had developers, we start to push code. So theme number 1 from this time is iterate. Our team is really big on this. And I think this picture kind of says it a lot better than that word. This is a bit ironic. As a graphic, as a car company, yes, we want to build up and ship cars in the physical world, but in the data world, we love the bottom half of this slide. We want to iterate products and features and deliver something useful at every step along the way. So that first year, we were building people skateboards. People were frustrated, we were frustrated, but we had to start somewhere. And yeah, as we built this stuff out, we have evolved from that skateboard to kind of more features, more functionality over time. So after that first year, I want to take you on a little detour, talk a bit about data in the manufacturing space. You might be new to that. This is a picture of our factory in Normal, Illinois. It's a great town name. It's about 2 hours south of Chicago. This is a 3.5 million square foot building. To give you a sense of scale, to walk from our offices on the kind of bottom left over to the drive unit shop on the right takes about 10 minutes, over 10 minutes. You get really good exercise when you're in the factory and attending meetings. Give you a sense of flow of production through this building. Rolls of sheet metal come into the stamping shop. They get stamped into metal parts. That moves down into our body shop. We're welding those metal pieces together into the frame of a car. We're moving into the paint shop. We're painting that metal body. Meanwhile, we're busy building a drive unit. We're doing a gear assembly and an inverter electrical assembly. We're making a battery pack. And all those components are coming together in general assembly, where these bits and pieces are coming into what looks like a car now. And then a lot of people are installing the seats, the wiring, the internal components of the car until we finally get a finished, tested car at the end of the factory. It's a little more exciting pictures to give you a sense of these different shops. A theme here is that each of these shops is really distinct. Physically, the processes they follow, the challenges they have. The stamping shop has these giant metal stamping presses. They're as big as a house that are stamping out these metal parts. The body shop is this kind of sea of 6-axis robots that are working in tandem to weld individual metal parts into a frame. The paint shop, cars go through these giant dunk tanks and they get sprayed with paint by these awesome more robots. The drive unit shop, we're doing all that gearbox assembly, also kind of electrical assembly with our inverter. Battery pack, we're starting from individual lithium-ion cells and building up kind of the electrical and mechanical connections to make this giant battery pack that's going to be bolted to the bottom of a car. And finally, that general assembly shop, all these components are coming together, getting assembled and compiled into a finished vehicle. So yeah, I would say variety is a major challenge for us in the data space. And just this one factory alone, let alone more factories in the future, there's a lot of surface area. There's many people, machines, contractors vendors to handle in the data space. This is kind of my cartoon model from some internal documentation over some major data categories we deal with in the factory. A thing to note here is Rivian is a really young company, which means we don't have great standards yet. So any of these categories you see probably has 2 or 3 or 10 different ways that data is coming at us, getting captured by different equipment. So again, variety is a huge challenge here. Early on, we were really focused on the fundamentals. How many things did we make? That was a valid, important question we had to ask. That's not trivial. What went into a car? What was the genealogy of a car? What were the quality issues and defects we were dealing with? How did our equipment perform? This sort of thing. I got to show you one gratuitous DAG slide. This is my only one. But to give you a sense, this model shows our completed units in the factory. This is all the serialized products that we finished from each shop. To answer that simple question of how many things did we build, we're pulling together data from 2 different sources, 2 different execution sources. There's different definitions in different shops. So DBT has been a huge tool for us to iterate and kind of wrangle this complexity into something simple that people can consume downstream. So we can keep it rolling into 2022. We started with those basic villages and simple marketplace, answering the most basic questions about data in the factory. And we're kind of growing and evolving. We're building up kind of towns and little cities of data, and we're expanding out across this domain of manufacturing into new places. Some of these are really healthy places, a lot of people engaged, contributing to our data models. The battery shop is amazing, shout out to those folks, really kind of flourishing with data there. Some places were more challenging. We had multiple systems, kind of execution systems in play and kind of messy, complex definitions. Some places were still kind of the Wild West. We had some kind of outlier data sets where an individual might go out and just be exploring all by themselves. Some themes here in terms of our team. We grew from 12 people to 17 people in that time. We hired our first analytics engineer. He's in the audience today. Amazing hire. Get yourself people who know DBT really well. But outside of the team, kind of the themes were more sources, more models, more dashboards. We're building, iterating out our functionality. We got Fivetran. This kind of put our ingest path into our hands. We were ingesting many more sources much more quickly, which was huge. This year was a big time to establish and expand our core data mart. This was establishing kind of core factory metrics used across all our shops. Again, lots of that messy wrangling of differences across shops into canonical single metrics. Another theme here was we got new collaborators. For us, success looks like lots of people contributing to this code. We were not able to do everything, so we teach a lot of other folks to fish. We teach them to write SQL, build their own dashboards, but also in DBT, we added collaborators. I mentioned that kind of Wild West data area. There was a mechanical engineer on another team who knew a data set. He was teaching himself Python. We taught him how to contribute to DBT, and he has been the owner of a data mart there for the last year and a half. So kind of got him ramped up. We were getting folks who had never used Git to contribute to seed files in a web browser. You can do a GitLab merge request just in a web browser, no code kind of IDE download necessary. And we had a great success story with a director of vehicle applications. That second winter came, and it was all hands on deck. This guy was in the factory helping out, and in under a week, he onboarded himself to our documentation. He was pushing models to production. So just amazing kind of starting success stories and having new collaborators. That second December was a good comparison from the first. Still a lot of work, but when people brought us questions, we were answering them in hours or minutes and pointing them to lots of existing content they could use. So yeah, a big improvement over that time. We built just over 24,000 cars that year. And again, here's some kind of stats, a lot more sources, more models, and starting to get a few external developers from our team. So theme 2, the modern data stack is all about ELT, extract, load, transform. We love that. We probably say that all the time. Folks who are not in this kind of mindset don't really understand what that means. It's not a really clear language to talk about this. We found it useful to, one, kind of zoom out, expand a bit, and talk about the broader, more holistic data pipeline, and two, use plainer language. So we talk a lot about this concept of what we do with data is we ingest it, we transform it, we report on it. There's other stuff that's going on, but it really, at the essence, that captures it pretty well. And when we're talking to other teams that this can be a paradigm shift for how they do things, that clear language becomes really valuable. When we're talking to customers who are not technical, they can kind of grok the basics of our workflow. This is from some internal docs. This shows kind of our holistic pipeline. We are sourcing stuff from databases and streams and files in S3, putting them in Snowflake, transforming with dbt, using lots of different tools to report. But if I kind of squint at this, fundamentally this is, we have a set of tools and workflows to ingest data, and we optimize around that. We transform it 99% of the time with dbt, and we report with a bunch of different tools. And so getting those separated and optimizing clearly around those has been really helpful. 2 is, I feel like a theme across a lot of conversations I've heard and talks I've been to is around behavior change. So much of this is around getting people to try a new pattern and a new tool. If you can do a top-down mandate, that's fantastic. We did not have that power. So this is a great, simple method from this guy, Will Larson, wrote a book about engineering management that I recommend. But this is kind of this softer behavior change pattern. Go and model a behavior that you want, figure it out, get it working well, document it, and share it out. That's really basic sounding, but I would say dbt has grown organically in our company from that. We have not pushed it on other people. People have found it and come to us wanting to use it more. And it gives teams kind of the agency to choose and to evolve and take it on at their own pace, as opposed to being kind of forced to do something. So expanding into 2023, we're kind of rolling with productivity. We're expanding from this world of the factory into the broader kind of globe of Rivian data. The first thing you might see here is we have 3 different warehouses. Snowflake, Databricks, Redshift. Why not use them all? I'm curious, raise your hands if you are working in more than one warehouse right now in your company. Awesome. Yeah, it's a real thing, and in ways we want to solve for it and support it. To kind of simplify kind of what's going on here, Snowflake is our source for factory data, kind of the factory domain. Databricks for the fleet ecosystem. This is all the data coming out of cars and chargers out in the world. And Redshift is our enterprise location, so kind of the challenge there. Lots of variety of data, lots of different domains playing in that space. So 2023, there's a lot of stuff on here. Sorry to throw lots of words at you. Some themes in this year. Cost reduction was a big thing for us this year. We didn't care about that at all the first year and a half. It was move fast, deliver value, build data products, which was fantastic. But cost got enough that we started to pay attention to it. That one analytics engineer on our team did a bunch of work with open source dbt packages to measure and monitor the heck out of our Snowflake usage, out of our Fivetran usage, out of our dbt usage. In his first 3 weeks of actually trying to optimize and reduce cost, He saved about $70,000 in 3 weeks and went on to save a couple $100,000 through a couple months of effort and cost reduction. And we have benefited in really great visibility over all our cost since then. Another theme this year, we moved from our manufacturing engineering organization into enterprise technology, IT, and later on we merged with another central data engineering team. As we kind of got exposed to more teams in the company, as these data marketplaces and teams and data sets were growing and bumping up against each other, there was an interest in using other people's data. There was also an interest in kind of learning, sharing best practices with each other. So our team organized a big cross-functional meetup, this Rivian data strategy session. It was 3 days of really focused in-person cross-functional discussion. Some really great discussion, some great debate, some disagreement. The 3 things people all generally agreed on that were well aligned on. One is we want to enable domain enablement. We want to enable lots of domains to be more productive more quickly. 2, we want to work in code. Everyone agreed with that. Yes, we love code. And 3, dbt just seemed like the best solution for the transformation piece. Let's use that more. So that was really encouraging to hear. We've been slowly kind of implementing against that broad strategy since then. We onboarded some new teams. Again, people in other domains were really hungry for this pattern. When we pushed a new raw data source via Fivetran into Snowflake and just unleashed these developers on a new team against that, they were immensely productive. And they were also really open to using our best practices, to going through code review. So yeah, in our experience, like people want this. They just need some guidance and to be enabled. Here's some stats on this is our latest factory repo. Lots of sources, 50 distinct data sources. There's more in files. Bunch of different data marts and marts that we surface. Still a very lean team. We don't have that many internal developers. There's a growing number of external developers, but they're just starting to contribute. So a very small group of people built this stuff. And we're going into our 3rd December, racing towards getting past 50,000 cars. So I'll let you know how that goes in terms of the data ecosystem. This gives you a sense of productivity, throwing up merge requests again. This is the entire year of 2023. We averaged about 65 merges a month. That's about 3 per business day. We are continuously merging and deploying stuff. We don't have weekly deployments. We have, if you get something to prod, it's out there. We want to move fast. Some usage stats to anchor you on where we're at now. We ingest a little over 1 billion rows per month from a bunch of database sources. We have a lot more via files and streams. We do a lot of dbt model runs in dbt Cloud. We do about 180,000 per month. There's a lot of materialization. The factory cares about fast tables and fresh data tables. Minutes is important to them, not hours or days. There's a lot of queries. There's a ton of ad hoc queries, individual users hitting Snowflake, and there's a lot of automated queries. We have this kind of big screen TVs in the factory by the production lines that are slamming us with queries. So that's awesome. We want that. Users, I'm really proud of these user stats. We have 340 daily active users in Snowflake. These are individuals logging in to write queries, run their own queries, run other people's queries. We didn't build the majority of that content. That's community content, and that's fantastic to me. We have thousands of other folks who are supported by automated reports, but again, we want to build that marketplace where people can participate. Theme 4, we love this phrase of digging a pit of success. We want to help users and developers kind of fall into a pit of success, make the right path easy to walk for folks. This is things like internal code consistency, having clear best practices, having templates for our merge requests, a healthy Slack community. It's basic stuff, but make it easy for folks to onboard. We got that director of vehicle software team to jump in under a week and push code to production. That's what we like to see. I think dbt as a tool in general is enabling this pattern. It's enabling falling into best practices for data folks. Theme 5 for us was if you're pitching a new tool, a new behavior to someone, it's better to sell them painkillers and not vitamins. This is a phrase, basically this means the concept is painkillers are kind of a must-have. It's dealing with an issue folks have right now. They really need it. Vitamins are more of a nice-to-have. We'd love to take vitamins, but we don't need to. So I would love to talk about all the cool features and the flow state that I get into with DBT, but when we're showing it to other teams, we've learned start with solving their pain, and then slowly move them towards delight over time. An example is the fleet data folks came to us. They had a bunch of great infrastructure, but they said, hey, we are having trouble with documentation, and we write a bunch of manual DDL statements. And so we just said, yes, we can solve that. DBT can help you with those things, and they've kind of grown and expanded beyond that over time. So where to next? This is kind of our global ecosystem right now. We have this very mature DBT project in the factory. We have kind of a growing, mature project in the fleet space, a bunch of different projects starting up in different domains. We are iterating and solving pain, so we are already sharing data in a few spaces. Those yellow lines are places where we're sharing data. The fleet folks, the fleet team needed data from the factory. We set up federated queries from Databricks to Snowflake. They can now query all of our analytics tables. We also have data sharing between Snowflake accounts with a DBT package that we built in-house. But we want to take that to the next level. It feels like we're kind of train going down the tracks, and DBT Labs is kind of laying stuff out just ahead of us, just in time. So all the cross-project references, data contracts, that's a huge next step for us to kind of enforce this data mesh. We share the data, now we need to build those dependencies. 2 is platform consolidation. We have this ET org that now owns Snowflake and Redshift. We're doing a big evaluation now to pick one warehouse platform to work from and align as a team and migrate onto that. 3, a global data catalog. Now that we're kind of visible across this whole globe, global data economy, we want folks to have that single pane of glass to find data. The easy solution here is have all our DBT projects through DBT Cloud push to Data Hub. Data Hub is the tool we're using. So this is super doable with everything in DBT Cloud. I'm also really excited about the Cloud Explorer tool. I think we want to expose this in Data Hub, and I want DBT developers to have the best experience in finding their models and exploring those cross-project refs, that sort of thing. A technical engineering one, we're optimizing materialization. In Snowflake, I mentioned real-time data is really important to us. Folks want data now that's happening in the factory, so kind of ongoing optimization around our materialization of models. And similarly, in the Databricks space, they deal with petabyte scale data, so figuring out how to scale DBT when we're materializing very large data sets. And finally, the big one, expand into more domains, onboard more folks. Kind of the rallying cry across teams has been domain enablement. I mentioned teams are hungry for this. They want this. They just need to be equipped with the tools and guided with some best practices. We have in DBT Cloud, we only have 25 developer seats now. We have a lot more people in the company contributing code. I think we could easily have 200 to 300 people contributing to DBT code. I'm a big believer that I don't care what your title is. If you understand this data and you can contribute business logic, that's fantastic, contribute. So yeah, I'd really love to have way more seats, have way more folks contributing. I think there's a huge opportunity there. Some final themes, wrapping it up. This is an opinionated one, but I think Tristan was echoing this. Is people who use data are often the best equipped to help transform the data. Doesn't mean they all need to do that, but giving them the opportunity to do that, I think, is a huge thing. And folks we talk to at Rivian are, yeah, the domain teams who are out there using the data want to be more involved, want to equip people. I think now, from kind of an IT, ET perspective, I think folks are going to go find a way to do something. I think the best governance comes from giving them good tools to use that give you an opportunity to engage with them, to have visibility, to give them guidance. So I think there's a really good hand-in-hand piece here with having good data governance by bringing people onto your main workflow and tool. And theme 7, build from the domain up. There is this concept in startups called crossing the chasm. There's this question of how do you bridge the gap from kind of early adopters of a product out to the more maybe pragmatic kind of majority. And the solution they recommend there is focus on one target domain, deliver an amazing product to one domain, and then you can expand out to other folks. And I feel like this is, maybe a little bit intentional, a little bit fortunate. Kind of what we've done with DBT at Rivian is that we kind of solved this problem really well in one domain, and people have knocked on our door and asked about it, and it's really grown organically. We have to go and do a bunch of execution, but starting slower in one place has given us the opportunity to nail down those best practices, figure out the tricky bits. So even if you were doing kind of a central top-down rollout, I would still recommend this approach. Start with one domain and learn from that. So to wrap it all up, some recommendations. We want to iterate, delivering value at each step along the way. We want to establish a simple language and strategy for how data is handled. We want to model good practices and share those out with other people to learn from. We want to make those good practices easy to fall into and use. We want to solve people's pain and then move them towards delighting them. We want to bring power to the people in transforming data. And when we're starting out, we want to solve for one domain really well and expand from there. I've gone a little bit over, but I would love to talk with y'all. I know this is high level, but hit me up with questions afterwards. Yeah, thanks so much for your time.